Podcasting is not the search for the truth. It's the search for purpose.
Accurate. I think we found our purpose. It's these silly intros.
I think so too. I live for this and nothing else.
Welcome to Science Fiction Book Club, a podcast for bookworms and stargazers. In every episode, we dive into the pages of our favorite science fiction novels to break down the big ideas, ask the nerdy questions, and maybe, just maybe, learn a little bit about ourselves along the way. My name is Opsa, and as always, I'm joined by the impeccable, well-framed, well-glassed man, Abu.
You're a big fan of my glasses these days.
I am indeed a big fan.
I love it. I got new glasses, and I'm a fan of them as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Opsa, as the Lord himself planned, according to his divine will and his larger designs for this podcast, we are here to talk about, yet again, another short story by Ted Chiang in his short story collection, Exhalation.
That's right.
But before we dive into it, let's knock out some quick housekeeping, starting, of course, with our spoiler warning. Today, folks, as the title states, we are going to be talking about the short story Omphalos. So, before you continue listening, make sure you read the short story.
That's right. And as always, we, of course, encourage you to read along with us, share your thoughts, and email us at sci-fi bookclubpod@loreparty.com. And, of course, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/sci-fi bookclubpod. We post free reading guides, discussion questions, and all the bonus clips you could hope for. It's also, of course, where you can join our Discord, where we like to keep these nerdy sci-fi discussions going with fellow readers in our community.
That's right. And all of those links will be in the show notes below, so check them out after you're done listening. Okay, Opsa, here's the game plan for today's episode. Just like every other book club episode, we will begin by summarizing the assigned reading. Then we will share our first impressions and thoughts on the book, which today we are a podcast divided.
That's right.
So that'll be fun to get into.
Yeah.
And then finally, later in the episode, we will wrap up by diving deep into our sci-fi analysis and unpacking some big themes and ideas from today's reading. So before we get into all of that, let's take a quick break, folks. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're getting into Omphalos. We'll see you in a minute.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/fees-info. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secure Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Let's begin with a brief summary of the short story for today, Omphalos. As always, Chiang tells a story through powerful framing. This short story is told entirely through the diary entries and prayers of archaeologist Dorothea Morel. We learn early in the story that Dorothea lives in a world where science has empirically proven creationism. Trees, humans, mussels, abalone, as we'll recall, we've proven all of these things come into existence at God's will nearly 9,000 years ago. For Dorothea, the pursuit of science is, in fact, a form of devotion, and she finds purpose in her uncovering God's grand designs for humanity.
That's right. Now, of course, the conflict in this short story comes in when Dorothea's worldview is shattered. A series of events ultimately leads her to Dr. Nathan McCullough, who's the director of the University of Alta California, and the great doctor tells her about a shocking discovery in a scientific paper that he has recently reviewed and approved for publication. The paper reveals that, contrary to popular religious and scientific belief, the sun is not at rest. In fact, our solar system is in motion around another distant star called 58 Eridani. Now, furthermore, 58 Eridani's motion goes against everything we know about celestial mechanics. It's seemingly moving in this perfect circle, which can only be explained as a miracle. This must be God's work. The paper's author, in fact, theorizes that 58 Eridani is orbiting around a stationary planet, and that makes that planet the only object in the universe at absolute rest, which of course naturally must mean that the inhabitants of that planet must be, quote, why God created the universe, end quote.
It's the only conclusion that could be reached.
Naturally. So in short, the findings basically suggest that humanity is not the center of God's cosmic plans, and we could be nothing more than the accidental side effects of the real plans happening over there in the 58 Eridani system.
That's right. We might be nothing more than an initial failed experiment, for that matter.
Oh my God.
Tough to swallow.
Tough to swallow.
These revelations, of course, have completely upended Dr. McCullough's faith. Quote, "My teachers told me that God wanted us to reason things out for ourselves. But what if that's not true? What if," his voice cracked, "what if God had no intentions about us at all?" Dorothea is also...
Or I guess maybe not my God.
Their God. Dorothea is, I will say, also unmoored by this paper and what it suggests. Her rock-solid faith in God and his great design shaken for the first time in her life. Disturbed, she ditches an exciting Arizona excavation gig she had been planning and instead spends time alone doing some soul-searching. Her work had once felt like the most important thing in the world, but now it felt utterly meaningless.
Oof. But I will say, the short story ends on a hopeful note. Because by the end of the short story, Dorothea has come to her own revelation about the nature of finding one's purpose. She recognizes that even if humanity is not part of some grand holy plan, miracles have still occurred here on Earth. The creation of the primordial beings, and then the subsequent chain of events that have ultimately led to the civilization that Dorothea lives in, is a miracle. Quote, "Miracles happen, and human choices are surely among them." End quote.
Well said, Dorothea.
Beautifully said. I really loved a lot of this final page of this short story. As we wrap up here, she also realizes that she has always found a sense of fulfillment in pursuing scientific endeavors. And just because she's now learned that God doesn't have a plan for her or for humanity, it doesn't make those feelings that she had previously any less real.
Right.
And so humans are capable of making their own purpose, making their own real feelings without the need of a grand plan. And I want to share the final lines of this short story because I think it's a beautiful and hopeful sentiment from Dorothea that I think we can all take to heart. Quote, "We human beings may not be the answer to the question why, but I will keep looking for the answer to how. This search is my purpose, not because you chose it for me, Lord, but because I chose it for myself. Amen." End quote.
Whew. Preach! Amen! Amen!
Literally preach, Dorothea. Amen indeed.
Yeah.
I really loved that sentiment that the short story ended on.
I agree.
Okay, so that's the summary. Opsa, what did you think? What were your thoughts on this short story by Ted Chiang?
Yeah, I mean, as you put it in the summary, as usual, Ted Chiang, master of his craft, master at using these unexpected framing and structural choices. So I thought the prayer journal kind of format, super interesting. You're essentially watching someone's worldview shifting in basically real time through these private moments they're having with their higher power. And I thought it was also, extremely interesting how Ted Chiang sets up this world where science and faith aren't enemies, like they are compatible in this worldview. And we see that Dorothea is a serious scientist. She's not merely a kind of a sycophantic zealot or a fanatic of religion, but she's somebody whose faith is built on empirical observation. That, I think, is like a pretty fresh premise. So you don't encounter that necessarily so much. And it was interesting. Like, what if the available scientific evidence actually supported young Earth creationism and this kind of Earth-centric view of the universe? Really kind of a compelling question there. That all said, the truth is that this story honestly didn't quite land for me as much as the others in this collection.
Okay.
A lot that I thought was really interesting, but I don't know. I mean, it's, again, solidly written. It's just not particularly compelling for me beyond the premise. And that might honestly be partially because of my own relationship to faith and religion. It's just at this point in my life, not a domain I find myself particularly drawn to. And on this question of like faith and science compatibility, I liked it as kind of the backbone of Dorothea's character. I thought it gave her a lot of richness. But I will admit that I've encountered these sorts of people in real life where they try to find a kind of rational, logical, scientific premise to bolster or defend their faith. And that has always felt a little hollow to me. Like, that doesn't feel, I guess, like a totally good faith, perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean, this was certainly not a bad story by any means. It's just,
right.
It's almost not saying that much to say it's my least favorite in the collection, because I like all of, I've really enjoyed all of these stories. So this would still stand, head and shoulders above many other kind of works of fiction.
Yeah, that's fair. It makes sense to me now why we had different reactions, because I am someone who, to this day, am constantly struggling with my own faith or lack thereof. I'm sort of always oscillating between where I am and how that relates to me as a person individually, but then also how that influences my community, my culture, my family, and the people around me. So honestly, I will admit, like, any sci-fi story that's going to center religion, I'm going to just have a bias toward liking. I'm a bit of a sucker for that.
That's funny. We go exactly the opposite way on that.
Yeah, but it makes sense, given like our personal relationships with faith.
Right.
I think it makes sense that we approach this story differently. I, for one, adored it.
Yeah.
I was completely blown away by Chiang's ability to sort of take large scientific concepts like the movement of celestial bodies, or the tracking of tree trunks and dating, using the rings to date them, using these like dense scientific concepts and still telling a pretty emotional story at its core. The journey of Dorothea, her loss of faith and her regaining of a new kind of faith.
Absolutely.
That really resonated with me. I also really just enjoyed the central premise of the world building. I was like, whoa, what if we lived in a world where creationism was proven by scientific, by empirical data. And I really enjoyed that throughout the story, in little ways, Chiang uses this premise to explore our relationship with faith and history and death and the very nature of existence. I really liked how the Dr. Nathan, he was devastated by this discovery on a very personal level, because it meant the death of his son was meaningless. It wasn't part of a larger plan by God. And so that was him struggling with creating meaning there. What does it mean when someone I love dearly dies? And it's not part of a plan that I thought I had faith in.
Right.
So I really liked Chiang using the premise and the setup to explore these other human facets.
Yeah.
I also really found Dorothea endearing as a central character. You know, I really liked her quote unquote secular scientist approach to every aspect of this story. She was very rational and critical in her analyses. And yet she still was a deeply faith-based person. Yeah. You know, I really enjoyed that. I also loved the little jabs throughout the story at the church because she is quote unquote a secular scientist. Right. She was like taking these little jabs at the church. Yeah. And the more sort of like fanatical faith that is still clearly present in this world. Right. The folks that will take any scientific discovery and warp it to fit their version of faith. Right. And her rational mind not being able to comprehend that. I appreciated that dichotomy still existed even in a world where science and faith seemingly are proving the same thing. Right. I thought it was a clever exploration by Chiang.
I agree. Yeah, it was interesting how in the story there is only one miracle. That the miracle was the beginning of life at the kind of outset of the universe. And so when people take like these artifacts that really do prove empirically that the universe began just under 9,000 years ago and try to use them to produce miracles today, she like dismisses that like incorrectly, you know, because there is no scientific evidence for that. So I did appreciate that. It is a worldview that is like really quite rational, and you can't help but agree. Like if this is what the evidence points to, it's only rational to believe it.
Yes. Yeah. So I really appreciated Dorothea's perspective about the short story. I have one minor nitpick. As much as I loved this story and as much as it resonated with me, I have a nitpick because I'm not entirely sold on this paper's hypothesis. This Lawson guy who wrote this paper, I feel like is making a couple of leaps of logic here that I am not entirely sold on.
You could say so.
And maybe this is just my own lack of knowledge when it comes to like gravitational physics and the movement of celestial bodies. But this explanation around 58 Eridani felt to me a bit convoluted. And I just really feel like Lawson is reaching with his proposal that there must be another planet and that planet must be inhabited. And that must mean that God's true plan is about that planet. It's like, bro, reel it in. All you really discovered right now is that 58 Eridani moves in a perfect circle. You haven't discovered anything else yet.
Right. Well, you found evidence. You haven't found a conclusion, you know?
Yes. So I felt like that was maybe like 3 too many leaps of logic for me to be entirely sold on this paper's premise. But thinking of it from sort of a narrative storytelling perspective, maybe this is just a way for Chiang to explore how all faith, whether it's scientific discoveries or based in religious texts, are all sort of built upon some level of assumption. Because that is a very human thing to do. To make the puzzle pieces fit, even if we haven't proved beyond a shadow of the doubt that they fit. All right, Opsa. That's the summary and a bit of our thoughts and feelings on the short story. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into our sci-fi analysis, and I'm going to give everyone a lesson on existentialism.
Spoiler warnings.
Hope you're fucking excited for that. We'll see you in a minute.
Good times.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
All right, welcome back, folks. And as promised, here is your lecture on existentialism from the one and only master of philosophy, Abu himself.
Oh, wow. What a title you've given me. Yeah, so for the takeaway today, this is what I wanted to explore a bit more deeply with you. Dorothea, essentially, over the course of this story, discovers her own version of existentialism. That's where she lands by the end of the story. And I'll admit, for this takeaway, I fell down a very dense and very confusing rabbit hole of research on existentialism, and we most definitely do not have the time to get into all of its intricacies and contradictions, but I wanted to share a very quick overview from my research for folks who may not be knowledgeable about it, like I wasn't before today, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too.
Yeah.
So, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia for Philosophy, existentialism isn't just a singular movement or one concrete philosophy. Quote, with this broad and diverse range of incarnations, it is difficult to explain what the term existentialism refers to. Indeed, the major contributors are anything but systematic and have widely divergent views, and of these, only Sartre and Beauvoir explicitly self-identified as existentialists, end quote. So it's a little loosey-goosey. It's more of like an umbrella category for a bunch of different philosophies that all are loosely tied together by a few core tenets, which I'll get into in a minute.
Yeah.
Before we talk about those core tenets, I want to talk about those two names that just came up, because they are very important when it comes to existentialism. Arguably, the two most popular voices of this movement are the philosophers Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. I'm butchering both of those names, I apologize. But these two are commonly remembered as the father of existentialism and the mother of feminism, respectively. Now, I was very tempted to fall down a major rabbit hole just on these two. We could do a whole episode about this incredible pair. The two were romantically involved for much of their lives, but they rejected societal norms, and so they actually maintained an open relationship. Quote, the pair never married or shared a home. Instead, they met daily in Parisian cafes to talk, write, edit each other's work, and often share details of their secondary liaisons, end quote. Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was also a lot of messy drama between these two. There's this whole problematic affair with a 16-year-old that they were each pursuing. Really wild stuff. They lived incredible lives and also very problematic lives. And if you're interested, I encourage you to do a deep dive on this couple. Anyway, let's turn back to existentialism. I'm going to resist the urge to keep dropping more insane facts about these two. Let's talk about the core tenets I teased earlier. I want to share just three. There's a few more, but these are maybe the core three that I could find. The first tenet is actually Sartre's own argument that existence precedes essence. And Sartre is basically arguing that we are born and then we shape ourselves through our choices and our actions, not the other way around. We are not all born with a predefined essence that defines our, for example, purpose or meaning. It's up to us to do that. Very in line with today's short story.
Totally.
Another tenet of existentialism is the idea of the absurd, the quote-unquote absurd, which is essentially the premise of today's story. It's this notion that the world has no meaning beyond the meaning that we give it. The third and final tenet that I wanted to share that I think is important to call out is the idea of authenticity. Many existentialists believe that it's important, once you realize the first two tenets, that your existence precedes your essence and that the universe is quote unquote absurd, then it's important for you to live the most authentic version of yourself, to act on your values, and also to take complete accountability for those actions, because there is no purpose or someone else like God to point toward for the outcomes and consequences of your actions. You chose to do that based on your values and your decisions, and the outcomes are yours alone. The consequences are yours alone. So there's a sense of responsibility here that's important to the idea of existentialism.
Right.
Now, to wrap up here, there are, of course, some critiques, and our listeners also might be hearing those 3 core tenets and going, wait.
Right.
There's definitely some critiques of existentialism. Critics argue, for example, that the philosophy focuses too much on individuals, and that it, in fact, underestimates social, economic, and larger cultural forces that shape us, right? We aren't born as totally blank slates, right? Your biology, your environment, the economic prospects of your parents, and the hospital you were born in, all of these things, the water you drink, all of these things play a role in shaping you, the human, shaping the essence of you, the person. And so living your authentic self is inevitably going to be shaped by your environment.
Right. By things you can't control.
So that's one major pushback against existentialism. Another critique is that this philosophy can lead to nihilism and despair, right? It's removing this like foundation of purpose that many people rely on to live day in and day out. And when you take that away, are you just leading people down a path where everything in their life feels utterly meaningless? We literally saw Dorothea experience this. She went and bought a cabin in the woods and like lived alone for 2 months while she did soul searching because her work felt meaningless. The Arizona dig felt meaningless.
Right.
So that's a critique of this philosophy as well. And of course, as a final critique here, inherent in these existential views that I laid out in their core tenets is the rejection of essentially God's design for humanity as defined by most Abrahamic religions. Although, again, this is a wrinkle that we don't really have time to get into. This is another rabbit hole we have to avoid for now. But Christian existentialists do exist. Famously, many of our listeners might know the name Kierkegaard, a Christian existentialist. And of course, that is sort of a internal contradiction that creates more convolutions within the philosophy. And that's one of the big reasons you can't just define existentialism as one thing.
Right.
Regardless, that's a whole nother thread we could untangle. But ultimately, those are some of the big critiques of existentialism and the 3 core values of existentialism that I found in my research today. I'm curious, what do you think of all this, Soap? So now that you've learned a little bit, and based on what you might have already known about this philosophy, what do you think of the worldview? Is it something that you subscribe to?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I definitely had a period of my life where I fell down a very deep existentialism kind of rabbit hole. And it is absolutely a part of my kind of current worldview. I was heavily influenced by Sartre and other existentialists, including Kierkegaard. And I think part of, there's a work by Sartre called Existentialism is a Humanism. It's a very short work and fantastic. I would recommend it to everybody. And in it, he does defend existentialism against some of these critiques. And I find them personally very persuasive. He definitely acknowledges there's a ton of emotional weight from this freedom, essentially, to choose meaning and purpose in our own lives, and the fact that it's not handed to us or kind of built into the universe, either through God or some other kind of grand design. It can certainly inspire some anguish. But I think, on the other hand, he argues that it's not so pessimistic or nihilistic or amoral, that it essentially elevates humans in a way that should be celebrated. Like, we are the source of all values. Human dignity and genuine ethical responsibility are a direct consequence of this. Our choices are very meaningful because we give them meaning. And it's somewhat circular reasoning, but a line that I kind of always have in my head is that, the meaning of life is the meaning that we give to it. The purpose of life is the purpose that we make for it. And so
Yeah.
I find that extremely empowering, and in a way that, I don't know, like helps me, in fact, kind of take every step I make in life, because it is centered on the choices that I make. And there's there's a radical freedom in that. So it's not without its pain, I guess, like this kind of existential worldview, if one chooses to adopt it. But I certainly believe that it's one of the most kind of, human empowering philosophies that we've come up with.
I think I'm in a similar boat. I certainly have one foot in the grave of existentialism. I don't know if I'm all 2 feet in yet, but I find a lot of these core tenets quite attractive. In particular, the idea of self-responsibility.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of authenticity, that core tenet that says that your actions are yours alone and the consequences are yours to deal with.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something that is very easy to pawn off if everything in the world happens because of some divine will.
Right.
I think that allows people to strip themselves of self-responsibility and accountability.
Totally.
And so that this part of existentialism really speaks to me, because I really, really strongly believe in that. And the other 2 tenets, they also speak to me to some level, but I do think I push back a little bit on the existence preceding your essence, just because I do think there are forces beyond your control, long before you were born, that do shape who you are today.
Totally true.
But again, going back to the accountability portion of it, I don't think that is an excuse for you to then act in harmful or destructive ways, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, again, as somebody who struggles with faith and is always kind of bouncing around on what I believe, I think existentialism is a very attractive philosophy. As much as I want things to have meaning, I will admit I'm somebody who wants things to have meaning. I inherently seek out meanings in things. I apply meanings to things because that's how I was raised. I was raised in a deeply conservative Muslim household where everything is shaped by God's will because Allah deemed it so.
Yeah.
And so the scariest part of existentialism for me is the idea of the absurd, that nothing has meaning.
Right.
That to me, I'll admit, much like Dorothea, could send me into a 2-month tailspin. So if I ever disappear into a cabin in the woods, you know what happened.
I'll have to burn all the books in that cabin. Yeah, no, I mean, I can totally sympathize there. I'm, on the other hand, very drawn to this, like the absurd, both in kind of existentialist vein, in comedy and film, like in everything. I find it to be one of the most kind of amusing things about our existence, because our existence is very strange. Like it is pretty absurd, like when you zoom out and you think about it all, it's like none of this makes sense. This is like all of existence is a pretty kind of wild thing and wild ride. And I also will say I definitely agree with the kind of critique that it is a somewhat naive worldview to suggest that we have, our lives are fully determined by ourselves. And there's I actually don't know what his like exact title or career would be, but there's a writer anyways named Joseph Campbell who there's a line that I really like from him, which is that society offers you this wardrobe of personas, which I always found to be kind of a really funny, interesting concept, because it is quite true. If you were born in the 18th century, there is no notion of being, I don't know, like a
YouTube influencer. Like you don't get that wardrobe.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is not a persona available to you. And so likewise, yes, the choices we make at any given moment are in many ways authentically our own and we get to make them, but they're not uninfluenced by, broader society, the era that you find yourself in, the country that you live in, the family that you were born into. All of these have effects on who you are as a person. And there are plenty of kind of economic stats that support that as well, where it's like your, family or your parents' socioeconomic status is a huge determiner of your own. So there are kind of lots of things that might somewhat undermine this notion that we get to kind of determine the course of our lives.
Yeah. But, I think even within that wardrobe, which pair of socks you put on is entirely your choice.
That's right.
And the consequences of wearing those mismatched socks is also entirely your choice. So you live with that.
That's right.
So to me personally, that's a big takeaway from today is the accountability factor of all of this. I really, really find that an attractive aspect of existentialism.
I agree. This was a beautiful takeaway. And I think...
Thank you.
All right, it has edged Omphalos a little higher on my list, perhaps.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, and it is quite meaty and, a topic well worth digesting.
For sure. All right, folks, that's it for today's episode. Another excellent short story by Ted Chiang. We have just one more to go. My God. This has been a long journey, and I can't believe we're looking at the final short story in this collection.
That's right.
That's your homework, folks. For the next episode, make sure that you have read the final short story in Ted Chiang's short story collection. This one is titled Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom. Now, some of you might be wondering, wait a second, what are we doing after Ted Chiang? Folks, we're just starting it over again. We're just going back to Merchant and the Alchemist's Gate. No, as much as I want to, round two. As much as I want to, no, we have a number of excellent sci-fi stories on the docket this season. So if you want to know what's coming up, what holds you need to get in at the library, and what we are reading next, check out the Season 3 reading schedule linked in the show notes below.
Well, friends, I wish your reviews didn't affect me so deeply. Would that we could choose the things that trouble us, but we can't. So help me out, help us out. Leave us a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can also, of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at lore_party. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, the podcast has left its traces on the world, and we only have to know how to hear them.
My name is Percy Jackson. Getting in trouble is like breathing for me.
The hit series returns to Disney Plus and Hulu.
The danger is greater than you can possibly imagine.
What about Grover? Save Grover. Save camp.
Percy Jackson and the Olympians. New season now on Disney Plus and Hulu. Learn more at disneyplus.com/what's-on.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.